Can you talk us through the general stages that startups go through when it comes to org design?
At the beginning, most startups have a very little structure to their organization. Most companies at the very early stages implement a pretty horizontal organizational structure. So this feels a bit like a collection of passionate individuals bonded tightly together. Often, it used to be back in the day before remote working, we used to be in one room, one space, and you're really working together collectively to solve typically a single hard problem. I think whilst the division of roles is clear, I think the responsibilities are very shared, and there's a sentiment that you're very much in this together. Then, as I mentioned, once we started to get some sort of traction and we got our first sort of 20, 30, 40 high schools, we started to add people and you feel like you're progressing towards achieving product market fit. And at that point, startups typically start to evolve into team-based organizations where teams emerge and those teams exist to serve very particular goals or functions. So at BridgeU, the first two kind of functional teams we assembled were the schools commercial team, very creatively named, which included both the business development managers as well as the account managers serving and supporting our high school clients. And then you had the tech team, which back then was loosely defined as probably a product manager, a designer, and a collection of engineers. I think then over time, as you start to grow more, and I think this is growth in both headcount, but also really maturity of the startup, your functional teams also expand and you'll evolve to start to require a management layer and a bit more structure, which tends to result in the emergence of what's known as a circular organizational design. One starts to build a bit of a hierarchy, and sometimes that's when you see the emergence of a dedicated management team or a leadership team that then start to assume responsibility for company-wide executive decisions, strategy, and resource allocation more broadly. And then I guess I have experience, particularly in the last few years, being part of a much, much bigger company where, and this is, I think, true also of much, much bigger startups or scale-ups, those that have many hundreds of people, you can start to see the emergence of a sort of matrix structure where you have that circular organizational design. But even more than that, you also have divisional structures or specific teams or squads or business units that are focused in on dedicated projects or product lines or even regional offices. So we have offices in a multitude of different countries. And whilst there's a collection of individuals, for instance, within our Hong Kong office that actually have different management structures, but they serve as a matrix function as our Hong Kong office. So I think I've experienced this over the last 4 years in particular, as BridgeU's been part of Kaplan. We now operate under the umbrella of this much bigger education company, and we ourselves now would be considered a business unit of Kaplan.